welcome to The Cliff's Edge, Episode 3, One Morning in February, Esra Uryun. 38-year-old Esra Uryun has not been seen since she left the house she shared with her husband and young son on the morning of Wednesday the 23rd of February 2011. At 7:15am, Esra told her husband that she planned to go to a nearby shop close to her southwest Dublin home, a trip that shouldn't take more than 15 minutes. Before leaving, a neighbour saw her put her bins out and get into her car, the last confirmed sighting of Esra. Some 40 minutes later, her car is picked up on CCTV at a roundabout near Fonthill Retail Park, 2 kilometres from her house in Clondalkin. At 8:40am, Esra's car is again picked up on CCTV, this time in the coastal town of Bray, where it is eventually left in a car park at the beginning of Bray Head. Later that day, Esra's car is recovered by authorities, still in the car park, but there is no sign of Esra Uryun. 13 years have now passed and Esra has yet to be found, which leaves many questions unanswered. Was Esra driving her car when it was picked up on CCTV? Why was her car driven to Bray? Did Esra come to harm? If so, why? And most importantly, where is Esra? This is a case that is close to Shane, as Bray is his hometown, and he was working with a local newspaper when Esra's car was found there. He has spoken to Esra's sister Berna over the years, and there is an interview with him and Berna that will also be included in this episode. Join us on the Cliff's Edge as we cover this unsolved case. Alright Shane, what's going on today?
How you doing, Kieran? How are things? How are you?
Yeah, good.
We've got an interesting one again here today, Kieran.
Yeah, Esra Uryun, yeah. This will be a case that will be close to you, literally, right?
Close to home, man. I'm from Bray, so I know a good bit about this case for a couple of reasons. One, at the time that this happened, I had ceased to work as a photographer for national papers and I had gone back working for a provincial paper. In actual fact, I went back working for a paper here in Bray, the Bray People.
Oh, pretty good.
So this is a case that we would have covered quite extensively in that paper. It's a really interesting case, Kieran, you know, and I suppose anyone that's listening here from Ireland has probably guessed the case already.
Yeah,
but
it was on Crime Call and all over the news and all, wasn't it, at the time?
Yeah,
2011,
yeah, 2011, 23rd of February 2011, and we're going back to that poor lady that went missing, Esra Uryun.
Could you give us a bit of background on Esra, if that's alright, Shane, please?
Yeah, so Esra, she was, her birthday was nearly approaching. She was going to be 39 years of age on the 1st of March, so we're at the end of February here with this one. And she was looking forward. Her mother was coming over to visit her. She's originally of Turkish descent, but grew up in the UK. But her mother was coming over, so was her mother-in-law, to spend a bit of time, and she was really looking forward to this. In actual fact, she'd been on her phone to Berna on the Friday night. Now, guys,
that'd be her sister, yeah.
Yeah, and I've interviewed and spoken to Berna on a number of occasions, and guys, I've got to tell you one thing, and excuse me, I've said it a lot of times before, but my God, if Carlsberg ever did sisters, Berna is the Carlsberg sister, okay?
Yeah, she's kept this one out there for a long time, yeah.
You know what, I was photographing her last year, okay, so this year actually, February this year, and she came over with a broken arm. Her arm was in a cast, and she came over here and she still did all the stuff that she does.
You hand out all the flyers and everything every year, yeah.
Since she went missing, she has been here over 50 times.
That's a grim flight to take, isn't it? Yeah.
So you can see why I call her the Carlsberg sister, okay?
Yeah.
And a lovely lady, really nice lady. So Esra had been on the phone to Berna, and she was organising certain spices that she couldn't get here to be sent over when the mother and mother-in-law were coming over.
Pretty good, yeah. So she was ready for that. So could you tell us about how Esra's day started then?
Okay, so Collinstown,
Wednesday the 23rd of February 2011, wouldn't it?
Yeah, so guys, we're in Bray right now. We actually are in Bray recording this podcast. But take yourself, we're all going to move from Bray now and we're heading back towards Clondalkin, okay? So Clondalkin is a fair little distance from Bray.
Yeah, it's right in the west of Dublin.
West of Dublin, yeah. And we are going, bear in mind we're still in winter, but this was a lovely morning, and it was quite crisp, and we were actually in double figures. It was 10 degrees Celsius.
That's an unusual day in February, yeah.
So Esra got up, Collinstown Grove, she went to put her bin out. Now, there's great significance in this bin thing, okay, because eyewitness reports are notoriously unreliable because days merge and you don't know what day you've seen someone or what.
Yeah, a lot of people do the same thing every day, so it's hard to differentiate the days when you go back in time, especially.
But you know what? you never forget the day you put your bin out, okay?
Well, it's the same day every week.
Every week, okay? So it was a Wednesday morning, and she was seen at 7:15 putting her bin out. And then she came in and said, look, I'm heading off to the shop, we need a few supplies, going around to the corner shop. So she got into her rental Twingo, which was shared with her husband. Now, incidentally, before we go any further with this, we must highlight she had lost the spare set of keys for this car. So not only was she sharing the car with her husband, but she was also sharing the keys with her husband. So off she went anyhow, and that's pretty much it. Now, she was seen leaving, you know.
That's the last verified sighting of her.
Last verified sighting of her. So 7:15 a.m. The next sighting was a CCTV sighting at the famous Power City roundabout, and that was approaching 7:50. So we're looking at a 35 minute.
And how far away, or sorry, how long would it take to get from her house to this roundabout?
Well, myself and Natalie actually did a video on this,
Pretty
and we
good.
did the drive, and we did it in under 4 minutes.
So there's about a 30-minute gap in
Yeah,
time.
there's half an hour here.
And she didn't pop up on CCTV anywhere else? Or
That's the
anything
only
like
bit
that?
of CCTV footage that we can. Look, we can't even say it was her. The car was
Yeah, I
appeared.
get you. You can
Do
not
you know what
say
I mean?
the car was
The
there.
car was
You can't
there
say it was her, yeah.
at the Power City roundabout
Okay.
on CCTV approaching 7:50. Okay, it's
Yeah, what do you make of that gap in time?
well, I'll
Quite
tell you what
significant.
I make of this gap in time. It's entirely significant, and whatever happened in that period of time led to poor Ezra's fate.
So what would be then the next thing that happened?
So anyhow, of course, the car arrives in Bray. We all know that, and
That's
look,
the one you see on the CCTV, yeah?
yeah. So the car comes down what we call Convent Avenue. Okay, Convent Avenue leads onto the seafront, the Strand Road, and she came out onto that. I'm saying she, but I don't believe for a second she was actually driving.
The Renault Twingo did.
The Renault Twingo came out onto the seafront, the Strand Road. An Octavia car, the Skoda Octavia, had to swerve to avoid. So there was very erratic driving going on here.
Because it was going down a one-way road.
Yeah. Now, what we must point out about this erratic driving, I spoke to Berna about this, and Berna said that she would describe Ezra as an overcautious driver. In actual fact, it took her 7 times to pass her test.
Okay.
And quite often, the result for her failing her test was not keeping up with the progress of traffic and stuff like that. And she didn't like driving fast, and she was overly cautious.
It's also likely she would have sped down a one-way road.
Absolutely. Like, I mean, this car... Have you seen the footage yourself, Kieran?
I have one, yeah.
It's
It was-
quite frantic, right?
And also, the person who was driving the Skoda, if they've ever seen the appeals, they have to know it was them.
And they never came forward?
No, and I always wondered about this. What do you think, that maybe it was a foreign national or
Yeah,
somebody foreign that was driving the car? Because I think all Irish people would have seen this.
Yeah, I think whoever was driving that Skoda is just, at that point in time, they weren't embedded in Irish news, and it never made anything to
No,
them then.
well, they mightn't have been able to speak English, so why would
Yeah.
they watch Irish news?
Yeah,
Could be
that's
numerous reasons, yeah.
And you know, like, I mean, you especially around Bray, you'd have a huge Polish community, and they conduct their own business with themselves, and they wouldn't have any interest in Irish news
No.
as such. That's the only reason. Like, I mean, I don't think it was an Irish fella or an Irish girl driving down, because everyone heard about this, right? It was national news.
No, I agree. If anyone seen it, they'd have to have known it was them, yeah.
Yeah, and look, Berna doesn't think it was her driving that car either.
That would be her sister doesn't think so.
No, she doesn't. It would make sense. Like, I mean, the car, I believe, and I've always believed this from the early days, even when we were covering it in the newspaper, that the car was parked in the car park.
Okay, well actually that's the next thing. So where did the car, after it drove past the Skoda, where did it go to?
So it initially parked in a car park that would have been Dawson's Amusements.
Yeah, that's
And
the famous kind of
yeah.
amusements in Bray, yeah, at the end of the kind of pier, yeah.
Whoever parked it there, I think, was aware of the fact that there was CCTV in that area.
Okay.
And they moved the car, and then it was brought to the edge of almost the last car parking spot before you go up Bray Head. So if you can imagine, if the car was parked facing the sea, to your right hand side about
Is Bray
20
Head,
yards
yeah.
is the walkway up to Bray Head and the old Bray Head Hotel, which they're now
Okay.
turned into
So they
apartments.
parked the car first, and then they drove back down the road, the one-way road, and looped back and came back down to the car park.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
it.
And would that be someone that would have to have local knowledge of Bray?
Yeah,
or-
I would think so. I
Okay.
would think so, because there are some very odd one-way systems in Bray that aren't incredibly well signposted.
Well, no, some of them aren't signposted at all.
Oh no. And you've seen that. I've driven you around a few times. Like, unless you kind of know where you're at in Bray, you can kind of find yourself going up a one-way road.
Okay, yeah.
So definitely a knowledge of the area, I would think.
There's something there, alright, with the car, yeah.
Well, look, I've always felt the car, the wallet, and all this.
Oh yeah, this is her purse was found in the boot of the car.
Yeah, but I think it's just smoke and mirrors. I think the
Okay.
whole thing, and the phone pinging at 10 o'clock that night, halfway between Bray and Greystones, to me,
On Bray Head, yeah.
Yeah,
Later,
this
later
is
that night it pinged at 10 o'clock, yeah.
yeah, this is all smoke and mirrors, and I believe that I think this was purposely done because I think the body had been put offside. And it's terrible to say the body, but like, I mean, I have to be honest with you guys, I don't believe that this lady's alive, you know.
No, so after so much time has passed now, and she did have a young son and a husband and all that.
Yeah,
So.
you know, in actual fact, I don't think that this poor lady was still alive even when the CCTV footage captured her at Power City Roundabout approaching
And that
8
would have
o'clock.
been before 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah,
So
I don't
what-
think she was alive at that stage.
So what do you make of the CCTV that was released at the time? It was of a woman walking towards Brayhead. Now I have my own opinions on this as well,
Yeah.
but your
Well,
opinion
look,
would be...
I can give you a very, very honest opinion on that. I think it's absolute crap, right? That's what I think of that.
Well, it looks like the woman's waiting for a dog.
I have never met Ezra in my life,
Hmm.
okay? And I can tell you with certainty that woman was not Ezra. Like, I mean, she had a completely different structure. She was a much, much larger woman. You can see Ezra was 5'3" and quite petite. And you can see that she's waiting for a dog.
Well, for anybody who hasn't seen it, she kind of hangs around for about a minute or so and
Yeah.
then walks up a little bit, and then the
Yeah.
little dog runs up after her, and there's nobody before her, or there's nobody after her.
Yeah, and if you can imagine the way she's looking towards the dog there, it's as she's going up towards Brayhead. To her left-hand side is where Ezra's car would have been parked, the Twingo.
So what would the terrain be like around Brayhead, where she was last seen?
So, yeah, look, there's a few things that we have to take into account here. One, we're still in winter, okay? So there's no substantial growth of bracken or ferns in this area. There's no substantial growth of briars at this time of the year, okay? So it's quite sparse.
So it'd be a vast area, but
Yeah.
anybody would be seen
Yeah.
out in it, okay?
The terrain is very, very rugged, Kieran. Like, I mean, once you go off the beaten track on the Brayhead walk, you're into very, very steep woodland, rocky areas. It's tough going, man.
But it's actually closed at the moment because of
Yeah,
dangerous
so
cliffs or something.
the cliff walk between Bray and Greystones is closed. Now, it's if you go up onto Brayhead, it's very, very tough going. Another thing, which I don't believe that this lady committed suicide, okay? And I just...
No, but I think that would be the theory if she went up Brayhead, wasn't it, by herself, that she would have committed suicide. That was
Yeah,
the
well, look,
thinking.
here's the thing that has been projected about Bray being. Have you heard this one about Bray being kind of suicide hotspot? In all my time, and on a number of occasions, I've worked for a newspaper in Bray, and I've never really. Are there suicides, of course, but I've never really known Bray to be a hotspot for suicide.
It's not known for it, yeah.
Yeah,
like
from-
like Holt would be, you know.
Yeah, well, for me, a hotspot for suicide would be indicative that someone that's not from Bray would come into this area to commit suicide. Whereas, to be honest, most of the suicides that happen in Bray are Bray people.
Okay,
so
so
that wouldn't make it a hotspot. But you know what? Curiosity got the better of me, and I have a good friend in the fire service in Bray for over 20 years. Fire service are generally the people that deal with the recovery of suicides. And I had to ask him, and he said, no. He said, it's not a hotspot. He said,
Okay, and that's a good source, I think. we
as
can
good
say.
as you could get, yeah.
Okay, so I suppose the next thing we should move on to, what do you make of the set of keys that were handed into the chipper? Was the chipper in Clondalkin, was it?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is very, very bizarre, Kieran, because
Yeah, it's hard to get your head around
yeah,
this. Yeah.
and I remember when I was discussing this with Berna, I the one thing that I had to make certain in my own mind, and I had to ratify this, was I had to make sure it wasn't the lost set of keys that had been lost before she went missing, you know, and it wasn't. And Berna could absolutely 100% say that, because there was something on the keyring that she knew and identified that was on the same set of keys when she came over to visit her. So it was the keys that her and Oscar were sharing for the Twingo, okay? So I think that's very, very bizarre, and one could only assume
When was it the keys were handed in?
it was leading up to Christmas.
10
2000
months.
Yeah.
It seems an odd place that you'd hand a set of keys into a chipper, right?
Yeah, it's a very, very strange one, and I think it's more of the smoke and mirrors like that we had seen already with the Twingo being
Yeah.
parked in Bray. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I don't think that they were randomly handed in. I don't think they were randomly found, because there was no signs of rust or
Well,
corrosion.
it's
or
been
anything
out for
around the
10
keys.
months.
Yeah.
They'd be damaged.
I think that the murderer handed those keys in. I really do.
Well, you'd wonder why a person would just find a set of keys 10 months later and hand them into a fast food restaurant. It seems quite strange. Now, the only thing is, were they found in the fast food restaurant, or did somebody directly hand them in. I don't think that's ever been made clear.
My understanding is they were handed in directly.
Okay.
That's my understanding of it. But there's a bit of ambiguity there as well. You know? We're not 100% certain on that. We do know that they were handed in, and when Berna came over at Christmas time, they were given to her.
Yeah, now this is interesting. The keys weren't actually given to the police. They were given to Ezra's sister when she came over.
Yeah, because they recognised there was a photograph of Ezra and her little son on the keyring, you know. So obviously they were identified as Ezra, and when Berna came over to get them to her.
Okay, but it seems now nothing has actually came from that though.
Nothing has come from anything in this, and you know what, I think the guards are pushing the narrative of suicide, I really do. However, I don't buy into that, not for a second, and I think that this wallet that was found in the boot of the car is very, very telling, and I'll tell you why for a number of reasons. One, not only was the wallet found in the boot of the car, which is a very unusual place for someone to put a purse, but there was €60 in it, and that's what she left to go to the shop. So this indicates to me she never made it to the shops because the money wasn't broken.
And the shop has actually been asked about this, and there's nobody that remembers her coming to the shop that morning.
Like, I've thought about this, like sometimes when I go and I do train up in Braehead from time to time, I would put my wallet in the boot of my car. That's just to have it out. I don't want it in my pocket when I'm training, and I don't want it visible in the car because someone might break the window. That's a caveat there where you would put your wallet or purse in the boot of a car. But however,
that doesn't tie with the suicide theory.
No, nor does it tie with going to the shop. You wouldn't put your purse in the boot of your car going to the shop, knowing that you had to get out to get the purse again.
No, so at some stage after she left the house, the purse ended up in the boot somehow.
Yeah, and my thinking on that is it fell out of her tracksuit pocket.
Okay.
I think she was in the boot with her purse.
It seems possible, yeah.
I think this lady was abducted, and one thing that I learned from having an interview with Berna was Esra was an incredibly helpful person. Okay, she would help someone if they asked her for some sort of help or directions or whatever. And sure, you're halfway there to committing an abduction then if you've got someone that's helpful. And
if the person has pre-planned it and they never took her to Bray, so Bray's a complete red herring really.
Look, it's all smoke and mirrors, the whole Bray thing for me, because like, I mean, where is the initial search going to be for a missing person? It's going to be where the car was found, isn't it? So let's assume
her purse and her phone.
Yeah, so let's just assume, okay, and we'd be led to believe because the phone pinged at 10 o'clock that night that she's still somewhere on that mountain.
That seems unlikely though. That's 12 hours later.
Yeah, highly unlikely. However, it's really likely in my thinking that, and we did the drive as well, myself and Natalie. Now, another thing that we must point out, kids were on midterm at that point in time,
so there wouldn't have been much traffic at that time.
No, and you know what, the difference on traffic when kids are off on midterm is incredible. Massive, yeah. Bray can be a bit of a bottleneck with traffic, we all know that, it's a nightmare.
But from the CCTV though, there was no traffic other than the Skoda on the morning.
No, and the thing about Bray is people leave Bray to go to work towards
people
the city centre.
Like
people aren't coming really from the city centre to work in Bray, okay? Bray is a kind of very much a satellite town. But between Clondalkin and Bray, if you come down the M50, there is an exit for Furhouse. And that exit, within 2 minutes off that, you're in the middle of the Featherbed Mountains.
That would be up in the Dublin Wicklow Mountains.
Yeah, you know, so...
And how long would it take to get from Clondalkin, say the Power City roundabout, to get to there? How long would that take?
I'm going to say about 20 minutes. Like, it's about 50% of the journey. Okay,
so the timeline fits that the person could have taken her to this place and got back down to Bray and seen on the CCTV.
So this is my suggestion, right? It works roughly within the time frame, give or take 5 minutes.
Especially with no traffic that morning.
Absolutely. So I think, and this makes sense to me, but look, I could be wrong, Kieran, but this is just my thought on it, that on the way they turned off at Furhouse off the M50, they went up onto the Featherbeds, they got Ezra's body and put it offside, knowing that they were coming back there. And they then headed to Bray, got rid of the phone, all that, and now the search, the epicentre of the search is now based around Bray, which gives someone an awful lot of time then to go back and correctly do whatever they have to do.
Okay, I can see the way you're thinking on that one. To take up your theory further, if that was the case, it would imply that it was someone that was not known to her.
Yeah, And I think so. And she's just a really, really friendly, helpful person. So, like, I mean, we've seen this with lots and lots of cases in the past, haven't we? Like, I mean, it's a very Ted Bundy-esque type way of abducting people, isn't it?
Well, it's known, unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah.
So I suppose one of the final questions I would ask is, has there been any developments in the case since 2011?
No.
And has there been like a re-investigation, or, when they like re-examined the case, have they done anything like that?
Well, look, we're still at exactly the same place that we've always been. Where are we? There's no progress made on this, and I don't think that there's a huge amount of inertia behind it either. I do feel that the guards are trying to write it off to suicide, and look, it doesn't make sense to me that it's suicide. Now, I understand the girl was upset. Her father had recently died, and but you know what? There is a distinct difference between being upset, sad, and missing a parent.
And she had a young son as well.
Yeah, and being suicidal. Like, I mean, there's a huge gap between those two emotions.
But I suppose then when it comes to the case getting solved, it's a bit worrying then if the guards think it was suicide.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? But, like, I suppose in defence of the guards, where are they meant to go with this?
No, it is true. It's very difficult to launch any form of investigation here, because I think what we know is what
everybody, like, I mean, it's as much as that's known. Like, I mean, there's no withheld information on this one or anything like that. Like, I mean, it's very, very sad. But I will say this: Berna was particularly close with Esra, and like, Berna has gone to huge expense, both time and financially, to come over here 50 times. Do you think she would be doing that if, in her heart of hearts, she believed that Esra committed suicide?
No,
it doesn't make sense.
No. So hopefully, for Berna's sake, it gets solved.
Yeah, this family deserve closure on this, but I honestly don't know how this case can progress. We've no body, we've no DNA.
We'll have to hope that she gets found.
Yeah,
that's the main hope.
We don't even really have suspects, do we? Like, no. I mean, I couldn't include Mark Hennessy in this.
No, well, these are the two kind of suspects that have been thrown around, as Mark Hennessy and Graham Dwyer, but I don't think there's really much point in discussing them, because there's no real circumstances around the crime. No,
I don't think so. Like, firstly, I think if you look at Mark Hennessy's case there,
but he's been linked to it because he's from the Bray area.
Yeah, but this girl didn't go missing in the Bray area.
No, and she's from Clondalkin.
Yeah, like, I mean, I could understand. I could understand more so how Mark Hennessy could be linked to this case if Esra had gone missing in Bray and ended up in Clondalkin or something like that.
That's not the case.
But that's not the case. No. Like, what would be the circumstances that a guy that's living in Bray would be in Clondalkin at 7:15 a.m. on a Wednesday morning?
That's true. And then also, when you consider the Graham Dwyer thing, he was more the type that would lure a woman through a relationship.
Yeah, so, well, what you have to remember about Graham Dwyer is, 2022 Elaine O'Hara went missing, or 2012 Elaine O'Hara went missing.
Like, but he was in a relationship with her long before 2012.
Oh yeah, they were totally ensconced at that stage. Would he have had the time? I don't believe it.
And also, why would he meet her at 7 in the morning in Clondalkin? It seems a strange time to.
It makes no sense.
Someone,
It makes absolutely no sense. And you know what? Another thing that I also believe, and we have the correspondence messages between Graham Dwyer and Elaine O'Hara. He never hinted at the idea that he was involved with anyone else either. No. Do you know what I mean?
To use it as power or
exactly.
anything. Yeah, he was that type of person.
Yeah, and he was that type of person. Like, I mean, he had suggested that no one had ever been caught for Rained Murray. He had suggested about trying to kidnap a girl that was working in a letting agency in Bray. Yeah. Well, I don't know if that was hot air or not, because there were actually.
No, I think the Rained Murray was hot air. But
oh yeah, I don't think. I don't.
Oh, he's definitely up to stuff before, but I don't think he can. It's very flimsy to link him to this case. But I suppose if he's one of them people, if he's out in society at the time, he has to be ruled out as a person of interest.
Yeah, I just think that he was so narcissistically driven that I don't think he could have sat on that information without sharing it with Elaine.
That could be well possible, yeah. Because as we know, like with other cases, they do share this information after a while.
Absolutely.
So I suppose the best thing would be to go to the interview you did with Esra's sister a few months ago.
Yeah, so look, the sound on this isn't great because it was actually done where her car was discovered.
On Bray.
Yeah, on Bray Promenade.
At the time of year Esra went missing, so February.
On the day. This was the day this year. So we met Berna there on the 23rd of February 2024. and we did this interview with her, poor lady, with her arm in a cast.
All right. Oh, thanks, Shane. We look forward to listening to the interview.
So Berna, thanks very much, and it's the first time we've met. We've spoken on Facebook quite a lot over the last year or so, and first out, I have to say, and I've said it before, if Carlsbrook did sisters, you would be that sister. What incredible work you've done over the last 13 years. Tell us about Esra.
I mean, Esra was, she was a people person,
Yeah.
She would make friends with everybody she came across with, and she was. It's so hard to describe because she was so full of life.
Yeah.
And she would befriend everybody, talk to everybody, and she was such a creative person as well. She loved art and design, and she'd done some fashion shows in the past and art shows because she loved painting.
So she was absolutely full of life.
Oh God, definitely. And she'd always want to help others as well. So she'd get involved with all these charity cases as well, to raise funds for them.
Yeah.
She's definitely a people person.
So myself and Natalie, we did the drive there last year, and there's a period of time that's missing from when she left between 7:15 a.m. to 7:20 to go to the shop. And that period of time, it seems to be between 20-25 minutes. Now, my thinking, and now this is just my thoughts, having looked at the case and read everything that I can get on the case, I don't think Esra ever got to drive that morning. I really don't.
Well, I agree with you. I dispute that too, because, the timing on there, I've always questioned this with the Garda, like, why did it take so long? Because her car was first, the number plate reading of her car was first spotted just before 8 a.m. that morning.
Okay.
And from that time to Bray, well, the time her car got to Bray is about the correct time. But from her house to that point, it's only a 4-minute drive.
Yeah, so I think whatever happened to Esra, and I have to point out, I do believe something happened to Esra.
Yeah.
I don't believe not for a second do I believe that Esra committed suicide. No. Whatever happened in that period of time. Yeah. And I believe that the car was brought to Bray. I've looked at the CCTV footage when she came out of Convent Avenue onto the Strand Road, and it was erratic driving. And am I right in saying that wouldn't be...
She's a very cautious driver.
Yeah.
It took her 7 times to pass her driving test,
yeah.
and one of them failed because she drove too slow.
Yeah.
So she was always very cautious of how she drove. So she, we complain about Sunday drivers, but that's how my sister drove most of the time anyway. So for that car to be driving that way,
it wasn't her that's driving the car. I don't think so.
It was just too bumper to bumper. As soon as the Skoda driver went in front, her car just went straight behind and followed. Where any woman would have held back a bit more.
It seemed to me, looking at the footage, and I've looked at it numerous times, it was very erratic driving and aggressive driving.
Yeah.
If I was to hazard a guess, I would have said there was a male driving that car in a very erratic, aggressive fashion.
Quite possibly.
Female drivers tend to be safer drivers and more cautious about stuff like that. Now, it doesn't make sense to me. And another bit of footage that was captured that doesn't make sense to me either is there was a lady clearly walking her dog down here at the bottom of the Strand. Yeah. And I never met Esra in my life, and I can tell you 100% with certainty that was not her.
No, that was not her. I mean, the build was not the same. My sister's quite she's not awfully tall, but she is taller than me. But she's of a very thinner build than the lady that they showed in there. And you could see that, they said to me, oh, she's looking idly, and we pointed out that, of course, if you're waiting for a dog, what else are you going to do? And you can see as soon as the dog passed her, she turned around and walked up the hill.
Yeah.
And then they said, well, that person never came back down again. Well, anybody that knows Bray, when you go up that hill, you do not have to go back
no,
down
you don't.
again.
And I often walk it myself. I walk up the hill and I go across and come back down.
Of course, because there's another car park at the top.
There
that
is,
leads
the scenic
you,
car park.
Yes, that leads you back onto the road behind, or you can walk all the way through to Greystones.
You
from
can.
there. So
out onto the cliff walk, you can go all the way to Greystones. And the thing that gets me as well, and I'm a resident of Bray, so I know Bray inside out.
Mm-hmm.
I was born in Bray and I've never lived anywhere else. The people that walk the prom here are habitual. There was no sighting over that morning.
No. I sat on the wall where her car was parked, just slightly down there. It was the last two bays, last from one bay that her car was found parked. And I sat on that wall in the morning around the time that her car would have been parked there, handing out leaflets. And, and I saw the same people walking their dogs, the same people parking up in the car park. And a few of them actually stopped me to say, "Are you okay?"
Yeah.
Because I was a different face to them, to the norm that's normally there at that time of the morning. And, and I'm sure, and, I hand them a poster and then they look and they say, "I don't remember ever seeing this woman here."
Yeah.
And, she's a stunning girl.
Yeah.
Stunning. And,
And that's vitally important, because what we must remember, and a lot of people can misunderstand Bray, but Bray is a very transient town. Mm-hmm. And the Bray that you would get from October to Easter is very different to the Bray that you get from Easter to the following October. And what I mean by that is, if you were to come down here in 2 months' time, there'd be hundreds of people walking here every morning. They mightn't even be from Bray, they're coming in to have a walk. It's a nice place to go for a walk. But in the winter time, it's locals. And they're doing it habitually. You could nearly set your watch by the time that someone's going to walk by there with their dog, know. And they do know the stuff. Because they're so used to nearly seeing the same people, nodding to them every morning, in the same way that they stopped and asked you, "Were you okay?"
Because I was out the norm.
Absolutely.
For that, for that time. So.
I think, and I know I've said it, and I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I think, something happened to Esra before. Near her home, and
I've said to them, my sister is. She's one of these people who will stop and help anybody that might be in distress. I don't know, and I've said to them, maybe she was flagged down, maybe somebody else got in her car. Maybe she saw something to stop to help.
That's plausible.
Yeah, and I said, and and that might be the reason why her purse is in the boot of that car.
Yeah.
Why is anybody going to put a little coin purse in the boot of the car?
Yeah.
And you have that dreaded thought, was she in the boot of that car with her?
Like it's a small two-door car. It's not convenient to get to the boot.
No.
Another thing that has been projected, that Bray is this kind of hotspot for suicide, which I don't agree with it being a hotspot for suicide, but in fact I went to the extent that I spoke to a friend of mine who's a fireman in Bray for over 20 years. Mm-hmm. So he would be very conscious of suicide and stuff like that. And he said, "You're right, it's not a hotspot. No. There are occasional suicides in the same way that there are in any town, but this is not a hotspot." Yeah. And I don't buy into that either. Another thing, which she never got to the shop, did she? Because there was 60 euros in her purse, which would have been broken down if she was going to get milk or bread or something like that.
But there was no CCTV footage to say that she entered that car park at all.
Yeah.
So, as far as we know, she never got there. And we went to every single shop that day to say, have you seen her? Because she was a regular in that Neilstown shopping centre. Yeah. And there's only a handful of shops anyway there. And she knew everybody, and everybody knew her. Yeah. Because she was there every day, either getting milk, buying a paper or whatever, And so it was a regular spot for her.
Yeah, and nobody's seen her there at that time of the morning. And we did the drive. Myself and Natalie did the drive in fairly heavy rush hour. Well, not rush hour traffic, but relatively heavy traffic. And we were able to make it to the roundabout in under 4 minutes, and we were able to make it to Bray in a good time. Yeah. So it's not a case that she got delayed in traffic. And it was midterm as well for schools, wasn't it? Yeah. So there would have been far less traffic around, and that would have a huge impact on the traffic as you go into Bray, because Bray is an awful bottleneck in the mornings and the evenings. But once those schools are on midterm, it's a free flow.
It's a free flow.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah. And we struggled a little bit coming in this morning because it is a weekday and it's not midterm. So.
But last week it was midterm, you would have floated in,
Yeah.
There was no problem. It makes such a difference. And generally speaking also, the traffic in the mornings in Bray, if schools are off, Bray is not a place that people come to work in. It's a place that people leave to go to work to. So usually you on that morning you would have been going against the flow of heavy traffic.
Yeah.
So that's
the
really...
only evidence we have is her car was parked here, so this is why we come back to Bray all the time.
And the phone pinged.
And the phone pinged here, but then I've always disputed, this is a mobile phone.
Anyone could
have that mobile phone, because the mobile phone was never found.
Yeah.
So, but then her car keys were found back in Clondalkin, in Neilstown, in a chippy, and this was after she went missing. And we know this because the owner of that shop, actually, when we came for the anniversary, the first anniversary, came running out the shop when my daughter went in, put a poster up. The owner came running out and said, "I've got your sister's keys." And I froze, and I thought, "What do you mean you've got my sister's keys?" Because it had a key ring on it with her and her son's picture.
So it was shocking to hear that.
So of course, and the photo on there is basically my sister with holding her baby with very long black hair. So he knew her well enough
that it was her.
That it was her. Although by the time she went missing, she had highlighted hair and she changed her hair colour. But he knew her well enough to decide that it was the same woman.
Yeah.
And I said to him, when did this happen? He goes, "Well, it was before Christmas. I was waiting for you to come back so I can give you the keys."
Okay.
And I'd left in June and I hadn't come back again because I'd already been over since she went missing until June.
Yeah.
So I went back home and so I didn't come back again until the anniversary for the February of the week.
Okay.
Came over, and that's when I was handed the keys. So how did the keys get back there? And we know it was her keys because of the key ring, and the Gardaí did go and try it in her car.
So it was the keys?
Yeah, it did fit. But they said, "Oh, well, she lost a set of keys." And I said, "She did, but that was in August."
Okay. And did we ever find out, was that the set that was lost?
No,
no,
it was definitely not the set that was lost, because when she came over after my father passed away, she stayed with me.
Yeah.
And I remember she showed me that key ring and the pictures that she'd had put in it.
Yes, you recognised the actual key ring.
Yeah, I recognised the actual key ring, and then she'd left them on my coffee table, and she goes, "Oh God, I must have lost these ones. I've already lost one set." So I knew she'd already lost one set.
Because I often wondered about that,
And the Garda said, "Well, they may have been the keys that she lost." And I turned around and said, "But if you're in a shopping centre, how are you getting your car back home?"
Yeah. If you've lost your keys, you're going back in, aren't you?
You would have gone back into every shop that you'd been in that day
you would.
to say, "Have I dropped my keys in here?"
Yeah.
And the owner knew her well enough.
Yeah.
And she was in and out of that shop every day, every other day. So he would have handed them back to her, because we're talking about August 2010 that she lost the keys.
Yeah.
And she didn't go missing until February 2011.
Yeah.
So that's a long period of time that, he would have given them to her.
Of course he would, yeah. That's very peculiar.
Yeah.
That's very, very peculiar.
So that's another mystery.
But I suppose the big problem with a lot of these cases is that you're not getting compliance with search after a good few days.
Yeah.
And that's a huge problem, isn't it? With all the cases that I've spoken to people who have missing family members, it's this lack of compliance. And I know that they have standards and stuff like that, but it makes it very, very hard for the family.
It's the fact that I don't live over here in Ireland makes it hard as well.
Yeah.
And any time I need to speak to the Garda, I can phone through and then I have to wait for days, or I email them and it'll take days and weeks for them to get back to me. Whereas if I was here, I would be knocking on their door more regular, and which I can't do from London.
Yeah.
And that's why, any little thing I try, that's why I've been here probably 50 odd times now.
Yeah.
And I fly over any time
that you can.
That I can. So,
and look, it's very, very hard. It's very, very hard because I'd imagine every time you come over, you go home heartbroken again, a little
Of
bit more
course.
heartbroken than you were ever.
Of course.
Yeah.
And it's so disheartening because, you know, the Garda are willing to follow up on anything that anybody brings forward,
Yeah.
and they have done. I
Yeah.
must give them that, because, you know, even with mediums that have come forward in the past, and they said, you know, she could be in this area, and they have followed it up. They've gone into the area,
Yeah.
and you know, another person came saying like he thought he heard a woman. Near an area just behind the mountain area actually, and they went into that area and they did like a drone search
Yeah.
of the land and stuff like that, which came to nothing. But anything that anybody knows, or you know, it may feel irrelevant to them,
Yeah.
but it may be a footstep for us.
It could be the piece that puts the jigsaw together. Yeah.
You know,
And-
any little thing that they may think, oh, this won't be relevant, but it may be to us. So, you know, if there is anybody with information, they just any information come forward.
Yeah, and you know what?
You know?
It's better. Like, I mean, we're kind of 13 years on now, and if somebody had a piece of information that they feel is stupid, it's better for them to come forward with that. It mightn't be stupid.
No.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
You know, and you're looking for any possible angle that you can go down and check out, because one of those angles has to be correct.
Of course.
You know, because so far all the information that the guards have.
I mean, we're willing to follow up on anything.
Everything.
Of course.
Yeah, of course you are. Like, I mean,
you know.
if you weren't, you wouldn't have come over here 50 odd times.
No,
Like, I mean,
no.
you want some sort of closure at this point in time.
Definitely.
And
Because it's hard for us to keep coming back, and then I get on that plane, and you know, and I just feel like I'm drained,
yeah,
emotionally drained to begin with, but then I just feel, have I done everything I could have done on this trip?
yeah,
And you know, it's just that feeling of I'm going back empty-handed. You know, you always want to be able to get something,
yeah,
you know, any little thing to hold on to.
yeah.
And you know, to keep hope up, it's really hard
Yeah.
when you're not getting anything.
Yeah, it's very, very hard. Like, I mean, and I'd imagine that, like, I mean, I can only imagine coming over here, running a campaign, and getting nowhere, and going home
Yeah.
worse than you were when you were coming
I know,
over.
I
And
know.
it's very, very tough. But that
But we're not
said,
going to stop trying.
you're still here. Here you are today,
Yeah.
and you know,
Not going to stop trying. God give me strength. I mean,
yeah,
I will come each time.
yeah.
Every time, you know.
And so I suppose we're coming to the end of this, and all that you can really say, if there is anybody out there that was in Bray that morning or around Clondalkin, or just think and come forward.
Yeah.
It's not irrelevant information. Any little tiny bit
Could be irrelevant
could
information.
be relevant.
Yeah, could be relevant to us.
So-
And that's where we're begging anybody with any information at all, please, don't hold it to yourself. Somebody must know something. I just can't believe that somebody just disappears
No,
and nobody's seen or heard.
no, it can't happen.
No.
It can't happen.
Somebody
And
must have seen. Just, you know, just think back. Just think
Yeah.
back, because somebody knows something.
and come forward.
And come forward.
Don't feel that it's foolish. Come
No,
forward. Bring the
definitely,
information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they can contact through the Facebook page that, you know, I've got.
That you
or
have,
even
yeah.
Twitter, you know, because Esra's out there, you know,
Yeah.
on the platform. So
And we'll put a link on that Facebook page on this video
yeah,
as well.
yeah.
So
Just come forward.
just
you
come
know,
forward.
just private message.
Yeah.
If you don't want to come through to me, then you know, the Garda Confidential line,
Yeah.
go through to them, or even the missing people.
anybody.
Anybody.
Your local Garda station, whatever.
Yeah.
But just come forward.
Yeah.
But definitely your page, if they message you directly.
I mean, I go to the Garda with any information I
Yeah.
can anyway.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
but please don't hold it.
Well, you want closure. Your family want closure,
Of course.
and Ezra deserves closure too.
Definitely.
Berna, listen, thanks very much.
Thank you. I'm
I
sorry.
can't shake your hand because this poor lady fractured her
I
elbow
know,
before coming over.
but it didn't stop me from
No,
coming over.
here you are.
I'm still here.
I think you'd be here in a wheelchair if you had to be. Listen, thanks so much,
Definitely.
Berna.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Esra Uryun is described as 5'3", slim, with brown hair and green eyes. The day she disappeared, she was wearing white Nike runners, dark leggings and a dark top, and she was last seen getting into her grey 2008 Renault Twingo. Anyone with information that can help solve this case is urged to contact Bray Garda Station on 01 666 770. This podcast and episode is dedicated to Esra Uryun. Anyone that would like to donate or contact us can do so through the links in the bio. Join us next Wednesday on the Cliff's Edge.